Hi everyone, I'm Hannah and welcome to this video. I thought that it would be really time for me to say a little bit more about my story, about my illness that I have been living with for over 20 years now, and to tell you why, what is the reason I'm making these videos and how I came to be here on YouTube and doing these videos for you. So let me start by saying my diagnosis. So I have been diagnosed when I was, I don't know, like 21, 22, maybe 22. With autoimmune illness, which is called scleroderma, systemic scleroderma. And with that, I also got diagnosed with Raynauld syndrome. Sometimes people who are diagnosed with scleroderma, in some cases, people with that also have Raynauld, like me, and sometimes they don't. They just have that primary disease, which is in this case scleroderma, but no Raynauld. And also there are instances where people just have a mild form of Raynauld, like and which is not that serious. Anyway, I think, I was just about to turn 22 years old, 22, yeah. And I noticed that my fingers were randomly getting like white. No, it started with my right index finger getting numb for no reason. It would just go numb. And I remember I was telling my parents, look, this finger is numb for no reason. And then I noticed that some fingers would be like different temperature, like this will be cold, this will be warm, this will be warm, this will be cold. Randomly, they would be different temperatures. Some of them would have a normal temperature, and some would be fully cold fingers. So it took about, let's say, a year for me to go to doctor and to get properly diagnosed. So my doctor sent me to this special test called plethysmography. I just translated that in my head to English, and I hope it's correct. Which just means like it's also called cold test. You put your fingers, your palms or your fingers or your hands, you put them in a very cold water for like about 5 minutes, and they also put some sort of electrodes afterward or during the test, I'm not sure, and they measure how much blood, how oxygenated your blood is there blood coming to the tip of your fingers? And that was positive, which is bad, because in other words, I failed that test, which then basically referred me to my specialist, who is treating me up to this day. And he basically made some basic blood work, which was shown that I have positive antibodies, which only means that my body is reacting extra. It's in a state of extreme autoimmune reaction, which usually doesn't happen when somebody is normal and healthy. This is a normal reaction for the body when you're sick. Excuse me. When we get sick, a normal immune response is to get antibodies that will then attack the foreign body in the blood, right? Like a virus, bacteria, or whatever. But in this case, I had positive antibodies, even though I wasn't sick, like I didn't have a cold or anything. But that was just meant that I have some sort of autoimmune disease, and it was determined that I had systemic scleroderma, but that I also had Raynauld syndrome, which again, Raynauld is something different than systemic scleroderma. It affects small capillaries on the periphery of the body. So that means, that can include your fingertips, where there are like small, capillaries, and your toes. It can be your nose, because it's like it's pointing out and coming out of the body, and so it can be often deprived of oxygen, like your ears, the tip of my tongue. These are the parts that are affected usually. And what happens in Raynauld, it's just ultra aggressive reaction of blood vessels, that small blood vessels, capillaries, that react in an appropriate way in normal conditions, which means, for me, for example, it can be like in the middle of the summer. It's warm, it's nice, but if I go to a supermarket and I'm in the aisles where all the freezers and fridges are with cold products, I get very cold. And it's like if I open my fridge and take a cold drink or something from the fridge, and my fingers touch that cold, capillaries immediately like shut down. There is an instant like narrowing of capillaries, and blood cannot go through. So what happens over time, and now it's been more than 20 years of having Raynauld, and like I want you to know, Raynauld, as I said, doesn't have to be that strong. It can be just a mild Raynauld, which many people have mild Raynauld when they have cold fingers, and sometimes they go white, sometimes they go purple, but that's the extent of it, right? But this is extreme case in me, because I'm special like that. And so I got the extreme version, and which just means over the years, what happened to me is with Raynauld, it was very bad in the beginning. Over first couple of years, it started to be very bad during winter time when it was cold. I mean, I live in Croatia. We have pretty normal winters. They're not extreme winters, but they're cold. Like, we have pretty severe winds here, and we also have snow sometimes around where I live, so they can get very cold during winter, but it's not extreme like it is in, I don't know, Iceland. But still, it's cold enough, and so in winter times I would get these little wounds. They would be around the tips of my fingers, right, around my nails. They would get infected, and sometimes I also had like 2 or 3 fingers affected at a time. And that's very, very, very painful. Now that would happen, it's like the same thing as people who have who are diabetic. Sometimes because the circulation is poor, they can lose toes or fingers because of it. It's usually toes. So it's the same process. There's poor blood circulation on the tips of my fingers, and therefore it happens, wounds tend to open, and so it's a very, very painful process. There is no known really treatment for it, and I always used to do it on my own. Clean the wound, put some ointment, put it in put something on it, like a Band-Aid or stuff, and that was it. That was the extent of it. So over time, and it's amazing how much body can regenerate itself, because after each wound, you have to understand, when there is a pus and there is like a scab afterwards, the portion of a tissue is affected, right? Like imagine, I don't know, this finger. So imagine there is a wound there, and when the wound is healed itself, in a way, it took a little portion of the healthy tissue, right? It's healed, but now the portion of the tissue is missing because it's just gone. It's destroyed by pus and the processes that infected that part of the body. So after a while, body can only regenerate itself so many times. I mean, if you, have a wound in the same spot for like 10 times in a row, it's inevitable that eventually little pieces of, flesh will be gone. So what happened over time is that some of my fingers got really, I lost, like the worst is my index finger on my right hand, which is very early, got very, very bad. And eventually I lost the finger due to just because it was bad from the beginning. That index finger was the first one that I noticed something. And for some reason it went like it was the worst. It got the worst destiny of them all. So anyway, this is my finger. It's a little weird looking. It doesn't have a nail. And so that's due to so many wounds happening and not being able to regenerate after that. And basically, in that sense, my fingers are doing pretty good. They are a little bit weird. They are a little bit short. Like this, thumb is a little bit shorter than this one because that's like that much of tissue went away during these 20 years. Nowadays, I don't have that much. I don't have any more wounds. Well, I do very, very rarely. In that sense, it got better, but the damage has been already done to my fingers. So that's the Raynauld part of illness. And the scleroderma, systemic scleroderma, there are several scleroderma types, but mine is systemic scleroderma, which just means it affects all of the body. Now, let me just explain what the scleroderma means in this sense. It just means in this autoimmune illness, my body, and mind this, and each autoimmune illness is different. There is a different sort of dysfunction of the body. In my case, my body, for some reason, is overproducing collagen. And the collagen is the stuff that everybody wants, right? If you go to Hollywood, mostly everybody injects some sort of collagen into their faces, because collagen is the thing that tightens the skin, right? And so in a way, I have a natural facelifting. You know, my so the scleroderma is with me affects skin. So there are certain, my facial features that change over time because, like, imagine 20 years of having, this type of tightening of the skin, right? Like my nose is a lot slimmer and my eyes got smaller because they're just tightened like this. And so, yeah, there are certain changes in my face. In my, like, central part of my body is also at parts very tightened. And I'm talking about skin. But, like, other parts of the body are doing pretty good in that sense. But the most important thing about scleroderma that I have is it doesn't only affect skin, it affects all of the internal organs, mostly connective tissue and fascia, which is basically everywhere. Fascia is relatively modern. I think it was only admitted or recognized as an organ relatively recently. And the fascia is just the thin layer, that white thing when you cut meat, if you've ever seen, when you cut meat, and there's this white thing that's covering the meat and it stretches, right? That's fascia. Fascia is just that thin layer that covers every single organ, every single muscle, every nerve, so every tendon and so on. It's basically everywhere in the body and it's affected the most. My tendons, of course, my muscles, all of them are kind of shortened. So, which means, like, my quads are shortened. My muscles in my quads are shortened. And I cannot fully, like, anymore, I'm not as limber as I was once, right? I have problems with squatting down. I cannot fully squat. And because it's so tight in my muscles that it cannot be done anymore. But also in my case, so scleroderma often affects organs in different ways. And in my case, it's mostly my lungs, which you can hear. I cough a lot. And this is due to, over the time, my lungs developed, there was a fibrosis, right, of the lungs, which just means because of tightening of the skin, which is everywhere and inside my body, also my lungs got tightened, and the little, pieces of the lungs, which I cannot remember the name in English, the little, like, balloon type things that help oxygen to move, the alveoles. Oh God, I can't remember the word. So parts of the lungs are very scarred with me, which means the physical capacity and capability of the lung is not anymore full. My lungs cannot expand fully because, they can expand, but the functioning portion of the lungs that is supposed to transfer, to take oxygen and give it to the blood and the rest of the body, is that these parts are scarred. They are tightened. Over the tightening over 20 years of illness, they got tighten more, and now they're at the level that they're not usable anymore. So at this point now, I have a problem of breathing fully normally. I get very tired when I walk up the stairs, or if I go just on a certain, like upstairs, up the hill. So that's where I am right now. I have to also say that I have been blessed with having an amazing doctors, a group of doctors, who have been really giving me the best medicine that Western medicine can provide. And I am also blessed that I live where I live here in Europe, because for me, in our system of health is made in this way that I didn't have to pay for any of my drugs, and they are very, very expensive drugs that I need, and I have always been provided with everything I needed, and I always got the most recent treatments that were known in the world for what I have. So I'm very blessed and very aware of that, because I'm thinking if I haven't had all these treatments, maybe my life would be shortened for quite a lot. And I always think that I'm blessed that I live here in Croatia, because I'm 100% sure if I have lived in, for example, the United States, with their healthcare system, I probably wouldn't be able to afford not only half of it, but probably none of it. So which just means that my lifespan would probably be a lot lower, and maybe I even wouldn't be here today, if I didn't receive all the treatments that I have. So in that sense, I'm very blessed and thankful. But so having said all that, why am I telling you all this? Because you have to understand, I was like 22 or 22 when I started having first symptoms, and when I realized I'm ill. That was in a sense also the start of my spiritual path, because I started asking questions, like, who am I? And why is this happening to me? And what is my true self? And who am I if my body is not working out anymore the way I want? You see, because we are so much in our identities, especially the identity of the body, me equaling my body. And what happens when your body suddenly gets ill or sick, or you're disabled, or you're in an accident, it doesn't matter. Something happens and your body is not anymore 100%. You get into this identity crisis, because suddenly you feel you're not yourself anymore. So I witnessed why I'm really doing these videos is this. I witnessed over these 20 years a lot of people having similar difficulties like me, people being sick over time, getting sick, or over the night, getting into an accident and getting very disabled, or, not being able to walk, not being able to get out of their room, or, people just having different types of illnesses and having hard time processing that, having hard time not having anybody to talk about what's happening in their lives, thinking that they are not good enough anymore, isolating themselves in their little, worlds. Excuse me. And I realized that, I know some people, just think there is nothing more for them to live for, that they cannot be happy. Some people just go into this depression mode and never come out of it. And I'm not saying I was not depressed during this my journey that is still going on. There were phases, of course, I went through different kinds of phases of, negation, of being angry, of ignoring what's happening, of being rebellious, of like thinking I'm just perfectly fine, to trying all different alternative methods. And this is all like part of this journey for me, but in the end, I realized there was always, even when I was very depressed and had very bad thoughts, very like moments that I didn't really want to be here anymore. Even in those moments, somehow, I always had this light within me that was this positive little, light, ray of light that always kept me going. And I always say this is, for me, naturally. I'm just naturally like that. I always, even in everyday life, when everybody else is feeling like there's a situation and somebody is just negative about it, I always look on the positive side. I always look like, I'm the kind of person that always sees the glass of when it's half full, It's not half empty for me, it's always half full. So I always spin it in that positive way. And that's me naturally. But I realize that not everybody deals the same with very hard situations. And this is where I got called into, like, I just felt the calling, the need to talk about this, because if one of my videos touches only one person who is in a similar situation like me, and make them realize, oh, maybe, there isn't a way for me to be happy, and, while I am like ill or disabled or whatever. Or maybe, if somebody who is ill and he ends up watching my videos and kind of feels they're not alone, and they get something positive out of my stories. That's all I want to do. That's my goal. If it touches at least one person and changes their heart and gives them hope, that's it for me. This is what I really am doing this for. So I want to end this video because I think it's getting quite long now, but I wanted to introduce myself. I wanted to say very, very short way my story. What am I ill from? What is my illness? And so on. And I wanted to tell you why I'm doing this. So now I'll be posting twice a week, every week, I hope. And I really want to provide, like I will be talking about, because as I said, this illness started me on my spiritual journey, which opened up a whole new world and of understanding myself better, who I am better, and still learning so much every day. So I'll be talking about this in future in videos about, how to overcome our negative thoughts and come out this identity that we assume as being ill, and how to be happy and love your life even when we are not fully healthy or have some issues. And this is a video for everyone, not just for people who have autoimmune illness like me. This is or people who are sick or ill or have some other illness, or people who are maybe disabled from birth or disabled from some sort of trauma they had. It's also for everybody else because it generally talks about our true self and who we truly are, which is for everybody. It refers to everybody, but I also want to help those of you who are going through something similar like me. So yeah, that was in short my story, and I'm looking forward to making new videos, to meeting all of you. If any of you have questions, if you want to ask something more about my illness, specific things, please do ask, and I will try to give my best and honest answer that I can in hope to help you. All right, bye everyone.